Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 286, Psychedelic Substances and Spirituality. I wanted to give a few anecdotes as well as talk about a little bit of historicity of the idea of using mind-altering substances, intoxicants as it were, in a spiritual context. I have covered this before, but I don't know actually that I've got any specific occult entry that was only and solely on this subject, other than when I wrote Psychedelic Spirituality, which was a book that I did back in, 2015 or 16 or something. Good book, by the way. You should definitely look that up. But here's the thing. Well, first I should give this. This is important. Disclaimer, I'm not telling you that any substance is safe or that you should use it or anything like that. You're responsible for your own actions. This is just educational and stuff like that. You literally have to say that if you're covering anything related, even to legal psychotropics like a morning glory or something like that. First and foremost, I'll talk about a couple of anecdotes, which is that my spirituality has definitely been influenced by the psychotropics that I used years ago. I was a psychonaut, essentially, in the late 2000s, up through, I think it was the end of 2010, when I had an overdose, and since then I haven't really used anything other than, like, I was a smoker for a while. I quit that years ago, by the way. You should quit smoking, too. Alcohol, caffeine, chamomile, but I don't know that you can't really consider that an intoxicant unless it comes from my garden, and I don't know, it must be something in the soil, but it's like way more powerful than normal, even with a normal dose, and it'll knock you on your ass. Like, I took that one time, oh my god, I almost passed out. Like, literally, it was like, as opposed to just encouraging you to sleep like normal, it was more like getting shot full of sedatives or something. It was crazy. Anyway, I remember the first time that I ever used a psychotropic was Morning Glory, Ipomoea tricolor, which of course contains lysergic acid, amide, LSA, as well as, I can't remember the other entheogen in it actually. It's been a while since I've used these things. And it's mildly sedative, mild euphoriant, and mild psychedelic. It's sort of like the little brother of LSD. You'd have to use quite a bit of it for it to even approach that level visually. But I can remember most psychedelics, including Morning Glory, that I used somehow passively encouraged a natural state. Now this could be, as an anecdote, bias, admittedly, because I like nature anyway. I like flowers and trees and shit, and of course, you know, if I'm in Rutland, I'm literally right next to the edge of the woods. Not the deep woods, but a small wooded area that is literally right next to the Green Mountain National Forest, in which you can walk for 20 miles without seeing a single road. Anyway, as a person who had an appreciation for that, I always felt more connected to nature when I used most psychotropics. And also I experimented as well with technology, with binaural beats, listening to certain music, watching certain films and so forth, even chatting. One time I was on LSD and I was actually in a chat room. I had taken a couple of tabs, went on ICQ back when that was a thing online. Now it's just an app. It's sort of like Facebook Messenger for Eastern Europeans. But back then, nobody believed I was high, and for some reason, I found this hilarious. And I sat there for several hours having normal conversations, as opposed to normally trolling people and making them upset, actually having legitimate conversations for a change. But psychedelic substances, in my opinion, I don't believe in the Jesus Christ is a mushroom sort of thing. But I do believe it's pretty much inarguable that psychotropics have outsizedly influenced human spiritual systems. Religious iconography aside, some of that appears to be possibly fungal in nature, although fungal and phallus, they look kind of similar in their more simplistic state, so you could be conflating the two. Essentially, in the Victorian era, you get phallicism, and then like 50, 60 years later, you get, no, it's not a dick, it's a mushroom. And so you've got these two potentially competing theories. You could say that it's just a symbol of power, it's like a sword or something. Of course, then, swords didn't always exist, and it gets very complicated. There's a lot of philosophical debate about the origins of man's spirituality. But when I look at the fact that Neanderthals knew how to make pipes, primitive wooden pipes, I'm assuming to smoke things, you have to wonder what was being smoked. Now, it wouldn't be mushrooms. Probably marijuana, potentially. It's possible. Nightshade. Could have been that they were using much more powerful substances. Deliriants especially. Some deliriants will make you think you're dead. By the way, I definitely don't recommend using those. They've also been implicated in addiction treatment. Iboga especially, which is an African drug. Ibogaine is the chemical substance. There's a whole ritual involved with that with several tribes there. Certainly mescaline has been implicated in that. People go to see the Hopi and have a religious experience. And ayahuasca, probably the best known of them, which is a whole brew of different substances, Banisteriopsis caapi usually, and then some MAOI inhibitor. I attempted to brew it once. I had actual material for that, thanks to a friend down in southern Texas, actually not far from where I had lived at the time. I won't mention Swim's name, but he was a far-out dude and sent me some cool shit, and I did get an experience, not necessarily a full-on psychedelic experience, which probably was a good thing, because, like, if I had, I would have wandered off into the woods probably, and my parents would have been like, what the fuck at the time? What are you doing with your life, son? But my spirituality, and this is just for me, definitely was informed in part by the fact that there are ways that you can affect your mind that break down the nature of reality into something new. Another big one is salvia. I use salvia quite a few times. It was actually, I think, legal when I was using it. I think they've illegalized it in most states now. I'm not sure about here in the Netherlands. I know magic mushrooms and pot are fully legal here, although they're talking about keeping tourists from using it, which might help cut down the crime rate because not used to it. But I remember I used salvia, I don't know, 50, 60 times at least, at various dosages. And I had various spiritual experiences, but it's hit or miss. In other cases, I had experiences that were just funny. Like one time I was literally on the phone with one of my Canadian friends, and I was describing to him what I was seeing. He did that later, but he freaked out actually and went berserk. And he was like 6'8", so it's nothing to shake a stick at. And I remember the keyboard in front of me turned into a cobblestone road, like the keys became road tiles, and I was literally getting sucked in, and I said something about having to go kill the Turtle King. Now, this is obviously not spiritual in the general sense, but I'm thinking to myself, imagine that you're a caveman, like a Neanderthal or primitive archaic Homo sapiens or something, and you're using one of these substances. Certainly, you're like, wow, it's weird, and you give it to other people. If there's any shared collective in the experience, especially if you have biased them by talking about your experience, you could end up forming a religion. It would take a long time. Each individual instance of this sort of ritualistic drug intake probably wouldn't, but over the long span of time, if an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of computers will eventually write every book on Earth. Therefore, my theory, at least in part, is that human cognition, in the cause and effect sense, took hold. One caveman biased the others by talking about how he saw the wolf god when he took the salvia or the marijuana or whatever. Other people, because they had that in mind, took the same substance, saw the same thing, and they formed a religion. They said, well, of course it's true. We're communing with this bizarre entity that we can only see when we smoke a pipe full of this particular herbal substance. Only when we drink this toxic brew, and then we can see the monkey god, the turtle god, the stone god. We can talk to rocks, we can talk to trees, and all of these various bizarre things were happening, and I think that formed at least the basis for human spirituality at large. Cause and effect as well. I've talked about false cause and effect. I talk about the story of Erg. He got mad at his wife one morning, and on his way out of the cave, he punches the tree, and he has a really good hunting day. Next day, he has a shitty hunting day. He wasn't mad, and then the third day, he's mad again, punches the tree out of anger, gets another mammoth. And in his dim, erg-like mind, something clicks, because cause and effect is part of evolution. It's a survival mechanism. And Erg said, wow, when I punch a tree, it seems to affect the hunting. Anytime I'm mad at my wife and punch the tree, I kill a mammoth, I kill a saber-toothed tiger. I'm going to test this out. So he may not be mad the fourth day, but he punches the tree anyway. Let's say he kills a couple of foxes. Well, Erg is convinced, and Erg will convince others, and all you need is one or two other people in that framework to test the same theory and have it completely coincidentally come out the right way for them to form a human spiritual system, and then start killing people who are not tree punchers. We kill those people. They're rock punchers. They're heretics. They don't understand spirituality. This is a little bit of a rant, but I just thought it was an interesting subject. And I think certainly, if you're, getting high, that sort of cause and effect might make more sense because you're intoxicated. That's about all. Peace out.